Everybody, just before the video starts real quick, I just have to apologize for being away for so long. It's just been sports starting back up and having school. So anyway, I will talk to you all in the video. Let's go. Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about my top 15 roller coasters pre-2023 season. I do have one honorable mention before this gets started, and that is Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. This ride was very, very insane. The ejector airtime on it is absolutely amazing. I love Magnum. It was the first coaster that I had ridden over 200 feet, and it just broke my fear of roller coasters, so I'm just going to give it an honorable mention because of that. The only thing holding it back from being top 15 worthy is that it's very bumpy. So anyway, let's get into number 15. Okay, so number 15, we have Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, located at Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida. This ride I felt like was just pure fun. It had tons of unique elements, like a drop track, a backwards spike, and 7 different launches. Not to mention the amazing theming that Universal puts into their rides. This was just a long, smooth, and overall just a very enjoyable ride. And I really feel like anybody at any age can ride this attraction. In my opinion, this is the perfect family coaster, and I just feel like anybody of all ages can be attracted to this thing. Overall, my favorite elements on this ride were definitely the drop track and those 7 different launches, especially the final one. And you join Hagrid on his journey out through the Forbidden Forest to go try to locate some unicorns in the blast-ended Scroots. And overall, it was just really fun. And so I think it earned its spot in my top 15 roller coasters. Number 14 on my list goes to Afterburn at Carowinds. And let me just say, I got to re-ride this ride after one ride last year. I got to re-ride it in the front row and in row 7. And let me just say, this ride is very intense. The trenches on it just make the ride so much more intense. You feel like you have all the wind in your face in the front row especially. It is a bit shorter of a ride. It has some really good inversions on it, and my favorite inversion on it was definitely that 0G roll over the lift hill. But it also has a Batwing, which I found to be a little bit too intense for me actually, but I just love 0G rolls, so that's why it was my favorite element on this ride. And it also has an okay theme too, themed to fighter jets, and Carowinds is adding Aeronautica Landing this year to just support that section over by Afterburn. But yeah, the elements are really well done on this ride, and overall, I just feel like Afterburn was just a solid and great B&M invert and deserves a spot in my top 15. Located at number 14. Alright, next up at number 13, we have a ride that is very special to me, along with Magnum XL 200. Located at Cedar Point, we have Raptor. This B&M invert also just broke my fear of roller coasters. I felt so good after I got off of it. It's my favorite B&M invert still. It's very whippy and very intense. I would say it's more intense than Afterburn just because of the elements on it. Great colors. It just looks stunning along the midway at Cedar Point. And I just feel like Raptor has an amazing sequence of elements. It is very, very intense. If I didn't mention that already. The Cobra Roll, absolutely insane. The Vertical Loop, absolutely insane. And like I said with Afterburn, the 0G Roll, absolutely insane. It also has a helix at the end of the ride that feels like you're gonna lose your feet. For that first time I rode it, I thought I was gonna lose my feet on it too. But the one downside I have with Raptor is this final transition in the break that kind of just throws you. But other than that, I think Raptor is an amazing ride, my favorite B&M ever, and it's in my top 15. Okay, next up at number 12, we have a kind of polarizing coaster for me, and that is Diamondback at Kings Island. Let's just say I had one really good ride on it in the spring of last year, but then I had one like okay ride on it in the fall of last year, and overall it has pretty good floater airtime. Those first two hills like have you out of your seat for like 5 seconds. Those two hills are both really amazing. But one thing that I did notice with this in the fall is that it has a pretty bad rattle in the valleys, and it doesn't run as fast as another ride, B&M Hyper, on this list, which we'll get to later. Overall, I feel like the splashdown is very visually stunning on this ride. The first drop is great if you're in the back row, but the other elements on this, like the helixes and like the smaller airtime hills towards the end, just don't really hit as good for me as what they did in the spring. So I don't know what to think about this coaster. So I'm definitely going to try to give it some more rides this year. But overall, it's a pretty solid B&M Hyper, and I gave it a spot in my top 15. Alright, next up in the 11th spot, we have Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. And last year, I gave it 3 rides. A couple of them were in the back row, and I thought this ride was super good. I had it at number 2 at Carowinds. This year, though, when I rewrote it, I got 2 rides. One was in the front row, and I felt like it got actually a little bit rougher than last year, but this ride still has insane, and I mean insane, hang time. You just don't know what to think of that first JoJo roll out of the station. It does have some weaker launches. Mach doesn't really have the best launches, but I feel like the launches kind of make up for it with the insane inversions on this. Like the inversions, the weak launches, like they give you the hang time basically, since they don't go as fast. This is definitely a back row ride though. I didn't like it as much in the front as I did in the back. So from now on, I'm probably just going to ride Copperhead Strike towards the back. But it's also rougher the farther back you go. But I still really like this ride, and it just missed my top 10. Next up, at number 10, we have Intimidator, also at Carowinds. And last year, I didn't think it was running too fast. I got one ride in the morning, and it wasn't really that fast. But this year, I rode it about 5 extra times, and this thing just hauls. The trims just don't hit as hard as they used to. So this ride still has just amazing floater airtime, and I think it just has better airtime than Diamondback. It has more airtime, I feel like, and that's what gives it the edge for me against Diamondback. I used to have Diamondback ahead of this ride, but with these re-rides this year, I put it ahead of Copperhead Strike and Diamondback. So just overall, really good ride, really good theme, really good colors, and I like this ride better in the back than the front. I did get to try it in the front this year. It wasn't as good as the back. The back, you just get whipped over that first hill, and overall, I feel like Intimidator, really good ride. So it made my top 10. To number 9 now, and this is Orion at Kings Island, one of 4 Gigas on this list. Orion just didn't do it for me as much as the other Gigas. Not to mention that this ride has very long lines for some reason, even though I feel like it's not as good as the other Gigas. It does have a very, very good first drop though, at like an 85-degree angle. You are out of your seat the entire time. It's kind of a shorter ride though. I mean, it has over like a mile of track, but it just feels short because Gigas, you're going so fast. It feels like they have to be long in order for them not to feel like a short ride, if you know what I mean. But the speed and the floater hills both are very, very good on this ride. That speed hill in particular, though, is very good. It's like you're out of your seat for the entire time. It feels like a long time, but it's just a speed hill, and you go over really fast. And then also the floater hill, it has a trim on it, but I feel like it was just as good as Diamondback's Airtime. So, Orion, once again, a Giga, but Gigas are all good, so I have to have this one at number 9. Millennium Force comes in at number 8, located at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. This ride carries insane speed, mediocre airtime. I don't feel like it's the best airtime on Giga coasters. We'll get to that later, but just a stunning view from the lift hill. I do have to say that. I think Millennium Force has the best view from the lift hill of any coaster that I have ridden. But I really just feel like that speed. I got to try it in the front row last year. Man, that thing just hauls in the front row. I do have to say that. It wasn't quite worth the 3.5 hour wait that I waited. I went during Hollow weekends, and it was the 3.5 hour wait. So we just chose the front row because like it wasn't gonna be worth it if we went in the middle. But anyway, I really, really like this ride. It was a bit overrated for me because my family said it was like the best coaster at Cedar Point. I definitely did not think so. But Millennium Force, I still really enjoy to ride this every now and again. And it's my 3rd favorite roller coaster at Cedar Point. And it comes in at number 8. Number 7, we have the 3rd Giga on this list, and the first coaster from King's Dominion, that is Intimidator 305. This is extremely intense, the most intense roller coaster that I've ever ridden, and I don't really feel like any other coaster is going to beat that. You are just low to the ground the entire time. Doesn't have the greatest airtime like Millennium Force. Intamin doesn't really have the greatest airtime on their Gigas. Again, like Millennium Force, you can just feel the speed on this thing. I think I give it the edge just because I feel like it has a better drop than Millennium Force, and I feel like it just overall feels even faster than Millennium Force, which Millennium Force is feels like the fastest ride that I've ridden. But Intimidator 305, crazy whippiness and elements on this ride are just crazy. I feel like whoever designed this ride wanted to physically hurt somebody. But anyway, this ride, stunning, insane. I just don't know what to think about it. So it comes in at my number 7. Mystic Timbers at Kings Island comes in at number 6 on this list. This is my favorite wooden roller coaster I've ever ridden. My favorite roller coaster at Kings Island. GCI, let's just say, you have done an amazing job on Mystic Timbers. I hope every coaster that comes after Mystic Timbers from GCI is similar to Mystic Timbers in a way. Mystic Timbers, absolutely very smooth ride. The elements are really rapid paced, and you are just out of your seat the entire time. It's kind of just like back to back airtime hills, twists and turns and tunnels, and you just fly out through the woods. I will have to try a night ride on this thing this coming year, and Mystic Timbers is just one of my favorite roller coasters I have ever ridden. That shed was a little hyped up, but I do feel it wasn't as bad as people were saying, once they had ridden it. But Mystic Timbers, one of my favorite roller coasters, and for good reason, too. Kings Island knocked it out of the park with this thing. Alright, next up, at the number 5 spot, we have Twisted Timbers at Kings Dominion. Sounds like Mystic Timbers. Kind of similar to Mystic Timbers, too. This thing has insane ejector airtime. Pretty good inversions, too. I definitely have to say I felt like I was out of my seat for most of the inversions on this thing. Very, very smooth ride. All RMCs are very smooth. We all know that. But just The swing axle trains make this ride so smooth, and I just love that triple camel back. That is absolutely amazing. I just wish I could be on that thing all day long, and this ride is like some of the most fun I've just ever had on a roller coaster, and I feel like this is one of the most re-rideable rides ever. King's Dominion had a great addition in 2018, of course, Twisted Timbers. But it only places at number 5, which means we still have 4 more coasters to go. And let's get to number 4, which is Maverick at Cedar Point comes in at number 4. Crazy launches, amazing airtime, insane intensity. That's all I have to say about this ride. I didn't know what to think when I got off this ride for the first time. I had no words, no breath, yet I still loved it. I did not even know what to think about this ride. I'm telling you, the launch in the second launch in the tunnel, absolutely amazing. I do feel like the restraints are a little restricting when it comes to airtime, but it still has very good airtime. The Twisted Horseshoe Roll, maybe a little bit overrated, but still pretty good. Those stangle dives at the end, though, those are some of the best moments of the ride. And do not sleep on the first drop. If you were in the back row and you have never ridden this before, prepare to get yanked. You're gonna love this thing, and overall, amazing ride. Number 3, we have a ride that I feel like is similar to Maverick, but does everything better, and that is VelociCoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. This thing is intense, amazing launches, very, very well themed, and I just feel like this ride was very, very good. Overall, this ride, it was a bit bumpy, but the theming, amazing. I just have to credit Universal for their amazing theming on their rides. The top hat was one of the best moments and views that I've ever seen. The Mosasaurus roll makes you feel like you're gonna go for a swim. Like, honestly, it's like upside down airtime. That's what I use to explain the Mosasaurus roll. Also, the stall I felt was pretty good, but I kind of forget about it when I'm talking about VelociCoaster. There's just so many other amazing elements on this ride, and we still have 2 more roller coasters above VelociCoaster, even though I feel like it's an amazing ride. So let's get to those. We have gotten to the top 2. These rides feel interchangeable for me, but if I had to decide on one, my number 2 is Fury 325 at Carowinds. I rode this thing in the front row this past week, and I felt like that was my favorite experience I've ever had on a roller coaster. Not to mention, it was a night row front row ride. Glass smooth, fast pace, elements are so perfectly done. This is B&M's best coaster by far. When I went this past week, there was no line all day long, so we just lapped this thing, and we got like a total of 9 or 10 rides on this thing by the end, and this is just one of my favorite roller coasters ever, and I have a feeling it's gonna stay up here for a while. Fury 325, amazing ride. You gotta check it out in Carowinds, Charlotte, North Carolina. There's one more ride we have to get to. Okay, the moment we've all been waiting for. My number 1 roller coaster is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. I mean, a lot of people saw this coming. This ride, just absolutely insane. Ejector airtime, First Drop, amazing. Outer Bank, amazing. Every single inversion on this ride, amazing. Airtime, 31 total seconds of airtime on this one ride. Not to mention, it's very long lasting. You can run 3 trains on this with a mid-course, just out of your seat the entire time. I just don't know what to think about this ride. One of my favorite roller coasters. Like I said with Fury 325, it's gonna stay up here for a very long time. Steve is a masterpiece. I don't feel like there's anything missing on this ride. Like some rides on this list, I felt like we're missing some things, but Steel Vengeance, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it other than the metal detectors in the line and that it gets like crazy lines. But that wraps up my top 20 roller coasters, and I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.